Disclaimer, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not designed to diagnose or treat. Speaking too fast. When beginning any exercise program, it should be reviewed and discussed with your medical professional prior to beginning. Information on this podcast is not designed to replace medical treatment. My name is Will. With me as always is Andy. I'm speaking relatively quickly because the kids are all outside and at any moment might burst in and scream in our face.
Yes. By the way, did I throw you off there?
You did, but I restarted and no one will ever know.
You restarted it?
Yes.
Oh, you're such a jerk.
Yes.
Those were the little moments that the audience, our three,
dedicated listeners
are actually, they enjoy those.
Do we know that, though?
No, I have no idea.
Yeah,
Feedback
exactly.
is limited.
Yeah.
If you are a dedicated listener, you can contact us at
DIY Therapy at DIY Therapy 206 at gmail.com.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, brain farting. I'm tired.
Yep. So this time you're more tired than I am, which is
not usual,
not typical. Yeah. But is that because of a certain event that you had to do this morning? Tell the listeners about what you found in your backyard today.
It was more in the side yard.
Oh, so sorry.
I was getting the kids up. I opened the curtains up to my son's room, looked down, and the space between my yard and my neighbor's yard was a dead female deer that we know had a baby, but not probably a week ago or maybe a little more than that.
You know she did?
Our neighbors have seen the fawn.
Okay.
And she was very engorged in her udders. Do they have udders? I'm not sure what that. I don't know.
I'm gonna say nipple region, but I don't know. That might get explicit on our.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. But it was. She didn't look like anything had killed her. Like there wasn't anything, bone sticking out or anything of that description. So I was a little nervous, thinking that something had killed her, virus wise or whatever. And pretty soon we're gonna have to. The government's gonna come along and firebomb the whole place to make sure that the outbreak doesn't.
This is ground zero. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I was wondering.
This is ground zero for some kind of virus outbreak.
Yeah. So I went out and checked it. I went to grab one of its hind legs, and it very clearly was broken. And that was the grossest part of moving this thing, because I called the city, and because it's on private property, I have to take care of it. Our backyard is basically just a big old valley full of trees, and something will eventually eat this thing and take care of it. But that was the grossest part of moving this thing, was the broken leg.
Well, and now you feel like you're part of the mob, right?
Yes,
like
I've moved the body.
Bodies.
Yes, because it was a full grown. It was like 150 or so.
So how far did you have to drag it?
I don't know. I can't measure it.
How about a guesstimation?
Probably less
3,000 feet.
I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, that's.
I was gonna say.
What are you, George R.R. Martin, that can't judge any distances?
I don't know.
Easy, George.
Can he? I don't know if he can.
No. At one point, I think he described the wall in he originally had it written out like it's 3,000 feet tall or something like that, and then he realized, oh, that's way too high.
Well, I know that the crown, the chair is actually, the throne is actually supposed to be like really.
Yeah, like 1,000, like
steps or something.
Swords, like 1,000 pieces of swords or something like that. Anyways, we've gone off topic.
But anyway, I've since drugged this thing. It was probably like 200 yards or something to that effect. Mostly downhill, so it wasn't terrible, but it was still not exactly easy. It's hot and humid where we are, so I was sweating like a stuck pig. All the while looking around, making sure that the fuzz weren't after me.
The fuzz. Nobody's looking
the
through the
police, the popo,
looking through the binoculars,
exactly.
The neighbors, making sure that it doesn't look conspicuous.
Yeah,
all that stuff. Yeah. So you had an interesting morning. Good for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So topic today.
We'll do general knee pain, but more along the lines of getting back into running. How do you've experienced some sort of knee pain? Who knows what the actual incident is? Doesn't particularly matter. But you want to get back into running. How do you do that?
Yeah. So this is kind of one of those things where a lot of people will have these conversations with us as we're kind of tailing off at the end of like a rehab, and we could be treating somebody for like a meniscus tear. We could be treating somebody for just like general knee arthritis, lateral patellar tendonitis, which is like kneecap pain. Or it could be like something that's similar to like a minor ligament strain, like a LCL tear or an MCL tear. So basically what it comes down to is once you get to the point where you have been able to decrease the majority of your pain, okay, and you've started to initiate some strengthening exercises. Strengthening exercises that we usually start off people with are things like quad sets, straight leg raises, hip abductions, both sideline and standing, and then start off with like some mini squats and mini lunges. Those are really the kind of the baseline strengthening exercises that you want to start off with. The next step is then to really introduce a little bit more of balance. So from there, what you would do is you would introduce maybe like a single leg stance. You could possibly do like a single leg stance, so standing on one leg, maybe even on a pillow or something like that once you've mastered the single leg stance.
Basically something uneven. It's going to challenge you, your proprioception a little bit that way.
Yep. So basically it's considered a non-compliant surface. You can do both those on like a hardwood floor.
Surface.
I do not know what that means. Now we're really going to become an explicit podcast. We're going to get that little E symbol right next to us because you're talking about your
non-compliance.
Yes, whatever.
I didn't say it was compliant. What I was non-complying to.
Yeah, we can only imagine, but we don't want to.
It's on you, man.
So, moving along. So you can do both eyes open and eyes closed, both on a compliant and non-compliant surface.
If you do that, make sure you're very proficient at eyes closed on a stable surface
first.
Yes, and then get really good at the unstable surface, then close your eyes.
Yes.
Don't jump to step 4.
Yeah, and the other thing would be, make sure you've got something in front of you. Like, do it at the kitchen sink, possibly, or in front of, like, a tall dresser or something like that.
Yeah,
something doorway.
Yeah, something that's easily accessible to your hands. You can stop yourself if you need to.
Yeah. So you're going to want to practice that, and you can do 30 seconds, 40 seconds in a row, up to 60 seconds. A lot of times what I'll have people trial then is almost doing that in kind of just a little bit of a knee bend. So first you do it kind of straight leg, and then so the knee's locked out, and then you actually get to like maybe like a 30 degree, 15 degree bend in the knee, and so you're really working other balance and proprioception and just stability exercise or stability activity around the knee and the hips and the ankles. So once you kind of move from those proprioception exercises, though, then I like to go into a little bit more dynamic things like walking lunges, okay, forward, okay, and then what I really like to do with people is do like a backwards walking lunge because nobody really ever does this, and so it's actually very challenging, and it works both strength and proprioception at the same time, and it's much more dynamic. And there's all kinds of different dynamic exercises that you can start to kind of incorporate some functional activity. Slowly, though.
One of the things I like to do.
Yeah, what do you like to do?
It's a trick. It's not so much dynamic but it's functional. Is a sit to stand, but you put say your right leg is the one that is hurt. You take your left foot and you put it on top of a box, something that's elevated, so they're not on the same level, right? And then you do a sit to stand from there. What happens is it forces that one leg that's on the ground to work more. So
gotcha.
It's almost like a step below or above, however, depending on how you look at it. It would be like beginning parts of a single leg sit to stand. It forces it to kind of work a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a good one, and it changes the way that I look at that too is that all of a sudden it goes from kind of a symmetrical movement pattern to an asymmetrical, which means that your body's taking in different input, which is really what you're wanting to do to teach that knee how to protect itself.
Yep.
Yeah. So it kind of challenges it in a different way. So then you'd work a lot of those exercises for probably another 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days. Half a week to a week.
Yep.
And then slowly from there, I like to then introduce plyometrics. So
Explain what plyometric is for those who
So,
don't know.
yeah, so plyometrics is more where we're starting to get some bounce. We're actually getting what's considered a ballistic stretch on the tissue, on the muscles, on the joint. We're loading the joint differently. So plyometric would be where, say, we're just kind of not rocking, but kind of jumping up onto our toes very quickly. So just kind of bouncing up onto the toes would be like a straightforward plyometric. And I'd like to see how people do with that first, because that's the first quick ballistic and real quick loading activity that you're introducing, which is kind of how you begin to run, right? So when we run, we're really loading that joint at much larger capacities. We're really straining that joint much more than what we were doing with just like a simple sit to stand or a simple lunge. We're all of a sudden loading it with our body weight, force, gravity, all those things combined. All of a sudden start to quadruple and the body weight and the force that's actually being placed through the joint. So you want to do it at very low doses first. That's why you do that just little bouncing on your toes to begin with, just to see how your body kind of responds. I usually have people do 30, 40 seconds of that, maybe 3 or 4 times, maybe up to kind of a 5-minute little training period, and just see how their body responds right then and there. Do a couple other exercises to make sure that doesn't aggravate it. From there, what I like to do is start to do just more plyometrics, but do it not so much just up and down on the joint, but now create a little bit more of angles and a little bit more dynamics in the knee. So kind of bouncing up and down, but spreading the legs out and then spreading the legs back in.
It's like you're doing a jumping jack, but not quite.
Yep. And then front to back, asymmetrical front to back. And then you can do 2 feet together, front, back, like over and in front of a line and back of a line. So back and forth, and then 2 feet side to side over a line. So you can start to incorporate all these little ballistic jumps that you're somewhat mimicking, but they're in a very controlled fashion. Yep. And so you do these on, obviously, a solid floor, and that's how I like to just introduce that. Do that for, a day or two. 3, make sure that you're not having any kind of adverse reactions. Maybe ice afterwards, just to make sure that the body's responding well.
You can never really go wrong with ice.
Yeah, and it's just kind of our safety net, as we've kind of discussed in the past. Anything else you like to do in terms of like that kind of transition before you actually go for that jog, or anything else that?
Not specifically. I mean, if they have access to a treadmill, you could put it on an angle and then walk backwards on it. It's kind of a nice one to kind of like introduce some more quad strengthening specifically into that, and work on a little more of the, just like you said, the adjusting to it, the protecting itself.
Yeah.
Other than that, no, because those are the steps. You could just obviously it's not a marathon. You don't, unlike you don't just jump in and run it. You usually train for it.
Yeah. So then the next step is really more or less like the way that I like to do, obviously this all depends on how severe the injury is. If this is just a little mild knee pain that happened for a week and you're getting real quick back into it, then obviously, you don't have to go through, so many stages for this. But if this is a little bit more severe of an injury and it's been, kind of bothering you for a long period of time, and you really don't want it to come back, you're going to want to then systematically kind of introduce low doses of running then.
Yep.
So, what I usually tell people to do is a light jog. Think about maybe like 33% of like whatever your typical speed would be, and do 5 minutes. And for people who are runners, that always kind of drives them nuts, because they're thinking 5 minutes. What the heck is 5 minutes going to do?
Yeah.
But you can still, if you've done, a week or so of plyometrics, you can still do some plyometric training after that, because you know how your body responds to the plyometrics. So when you do the jogging, then you can say, okay, well, now my body's actually adapted to that because I haven't had any pain, versus it actually doing too much of the running and starting to actually injure or agitate the joint.
Not quite re-injuring it, but not allowing it to heal.
More or less, strain it. So I like to do 5 minutes for maybe 3 or 4 days in terms of the running, and then slowly kind of bump that up to 2.5, or by 2.5 every 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
It's a slow process, but if you really want to get back to where your body, that your body is acclimating to the run, then, you know, you want to go through this process over a 6-week period where you're really kind of introducing and getting back to your normal. After you've gone through the plyometric phase, you know, now it's a 6-week process to really introduce. If you're running for 45 minutes, it may be that, you know, you're introducing it for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
If you're a 20-minute runner, it may be that you're introducing it for 2.5 weeks or whatever it takes you. But it all kind of depends on, you know, the how intense you're actually running and the length, you know, frequency, duration.
Everyone's a little bit different. It just depends on how substantial the injury is.
Yeah.
If it's just general knee, if it's just like, oh, my knee's aching a little bit, you probably could bump this up, this up quite a bit.
And certainly, it also depends on what your goals are.
Yeah.
Again, 20-minute, you know, goal is you want to get 20 minutes 3 times a week. That's a big difference than, hey, I'm training, you know, I like to run 5Ks and I really want my personal best every time I do a 5K.
Yeah.
You know, those are totally different goals. You know, so you know, usually the person who's a little bit more intense is going to have to kind of slowly build
and they'll
up
be the
to
one
that.
that'll be harder sell.
Yeah, and they're the ones that are going to re-injure themselves because they're going to get back into it too quickly.
Yeah.
But regardless, you know, you're always going to want to be icing afterwards when especially if you do make like a jump, say, you know, people get a little frustrated and a little impatient. So a lot of times they'll be running for 10 minutes and then they'll all of a sudden, you know, add on 15. And so if you do make that decision, which that's not what our recommendation is, but if you do make that decision, make sure you're icing afterwards.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which we do.
And continue the strengthening exercises because that's generally the biggest problem that runners have is they're not strong enough.
Yeah.
It's a great cardiovascular exercise, but it's not very. I always kind of your body gets very good at doing one thing and neglects other things. Mm-hmm. So if you only do the one thing,
very efficient.
Yes, it gets really good at doing that one thing and just starts cannibalizing other things to get really good at that one thing.
Yeah, and I think it's a very common misconception that, you know, people who can run marathons, half marathons, 10Ks, whatever it is, or, you know, you run 45 minutes 5 days a week, that you're stable. Your quads are stable.
Yeah,
your core is stable. Your pelvis is stable.
People say that you're in good shape. You're in good cardiovascular, good running shape.
Yeah, but you may have weaker than snot pelvis, low back. You know, your quads may need a little bit of work. Yeah, stabilize, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So
always be cross training.
There you go.
I was trying to think of the acronym, but I don't want to do that.
I can't think of that right now. Anything else?
It was ABC. It's ABC.
Always be crosser. What?
Dang! What did I do?
We just came up with something right there. Look at that. Look how creative we are. It's like we are creating content or something.
Nailed it.
Yeah. Anyways, anything else?
No, it's depending on, like I said, depending on the injury it might take longer than you want.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to actually get back to running the way you were, then you're gonna have to take it a little bit slow. It's always kind of just test. You know, give it a small test, assess how it felt. If it felt okay, then you can keep going. You know, add a little bit more, but just slow and steady wins the race in that particular race.
Yeah, and just remember, you know, this is unique to you. Don't compare what Johnny down the street did or Sally, you know, in your apartment building.
Yeah, everybody's
this
significantly different. I mean, the biggest difference, like for that, I can say was most rotator cuffs are usually when they come in are what. They're garbage. They can't move their arm. They can't do anything like this, right? I mean, it's not the garbage. It's just it's the nature of what happens, right?
Yeah.
I've seen a guy who came in where I first worked, an outpatient, came in, just got out of the sling, and he could just move. He had full range of motion.
I'm treating a guy we're finishing up with that right now.
Yeah. So I mean, there are weird people out there that
they're going to do great.
Yes.
Yeah. It's always apples and oranges.
It's not even like this person was like in super good shape before. And my guy was like some 70-year-old man. So it was just a weird thing. He just was fine.
Occasionally that's how it happens. And of course those are the stories you hear. So you always think
like maybe me. That should be me.
I should be the exception to the rule, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which most of us are not.
I mean, I am, but you're not.
No, I am not. I'm a broken man in every capacity.
That's all. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm depressed. Thanks. Anything else?
No, but remember to give us a rating. If you're listening on iTunes, remember to give us a rating. That helps other people find us. It takes like 5 minutes. Just throw on there 5 stars and say worst thing ever. Don't listen to it. Oh wait, no.
5 stars. 5 stars. Great.
Well, I mean,
greatest
just say 5 stars and then you can write whatever you want.
No. Greatest thing ever though.
It's fine.
Please. help us out.
Yeah, that helps us out. If you have any questions, you can always email us at DIYtherapy206@gmail.com. 206 is because that's how many bones you got.
And we're also offering wellness consultations for common aches and pains.
If you have, let's say, some sort of knee injury that you're like, I don't really want to bother going into therapy because I can probably treat this myself, but I need a little help guidance.
That's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for. 25 minutes, $30. It's cheaper than therapy.
A lot cheaper.
You can visit us at DIYtherapy.net for that.
There's a booking tab that you can go to and book with either myself or Will.
Yep. I'll walk you through it, help you, guide you through that sort of stuff.
Preferably Will. What?
I didn't say anything.
Okay. All right, good stuff.
All right, we're wrapping this up. This podcast was for educational purposes only. It is not designed to diagnose or treat when beginning any exercise program. It should be reviewed and discussed with your medical professional prior to beginning. Information on this podcast is not designed to replace medical treatment. Remember, treat yourself.